And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Tilson Live. Thanks for joining us. I am one of your hosts, Eric Allered, Senior Vice President of Tilson Homes, part of the fourth generation of the Tilson family. And I'm going to say we are not even joined as we are every week, but actually led and even made possible by, as we are every week, the real host, Dawn Dantzler. Say hello, Dawn.
Hi, everybody.
All right, so thanks for joining Eric and Dawn today. You know, most shows have some kind of a sponsor. We have reached some milestones. What do we have? How many? We got a bunch of YouTube subscribers now.
We do. We have 1,000 YouTube subscribers. So thank you, YouTube.
So thank you guys for doing that. And that's without of the pandering of the smashing and asking of the like buttons and pounding and whatnot of the ridiculousness. So it's authentic. Thank you, everyone who does that. And of course, as we are every week, we're here to help you on this journey of building a custom home on your land. That's all we know how to do. So that's all Dawn knows how to do, but that is all I know how to do.
And you know a lot more about it than I do.
Right. Well, one trick pony. What are you going to do? So we are in a slightly different position this time. So guys, tell us where you're coming in from. We'd love to see. Post it in the chat, in the comments. Dawn and her team will be monitoring the chat and the comments. I'm seated for this one because we are anticipating what could be a marathon session today, Dawn.
Be here for a while. So we've got Hugh coming in from Austin. We've got Anthony in Texas this week. Came down from Delaware, visited design centers. Awesome.
Welcome.
Neil is coming in from Mansfield.
Yep.
And Robert's back. He's able to catch us live.
Right.
Yay!
Hey,
We
Robert,
missed you.
Welcome back.
More from Austin, Houston, Kyle. Awesome.
Brilliant. I'll take kinda. Thanks, Hannah.
Hey, I think that's the best we're gonna get. So thanks, Hannah.
So yeah, guys, jump in. Tell us where you're
awesome.
watching from, and also obviously post any and all questions that you have that have anything to do with building a home on your land. Life advice, things like that. I'm sure there's other sessions and podcasts and things, but hey, this one's free. So it doesn't count towards your deductible, and also we guarantee you get what you pay for.
Very much so. You might not want to ask us for life advice.
But we'll help in any way that we can. I've certainly made mistakes. I can tell you those.
You can poll the crowd. I think some of our watchers are probably more able to give life advice.
Oh, yes. Nothing dangerous about when I saw a little meme, Dawn, that had something about, are you taking me to the hospital? It was so they were loading this person into the back of an ambulance, and it said, no, sir, we're going straight to the comment section for you. It's like, for your advice. You don't need the hospital.
Right.
Straight to the comment section. So anything about customization of our plans, how to go about the whole process of finding land, building a home on your land, getting the utilities there, design changes, financing, codes, architects control committees, property owners associations, TxDOT, pandemic, supply chain, blah, lots of stuff going on.
Yes, lots of things happening.
Primarily, what are we talking about today, Dawn?
Today, we're mostly going to talk about energy efficiency.
We are going the topic of the day is, in fact, energy efficiency, which is great. But again, obviously, we will answer and entertain all questions pertaining to that and anything else that has to do build on your land.
Absolutely.
But to be respectful of everyone's time and of poor Nick Watkins, who's, I think, responsible for the show notes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So today, Nick, you're going to earn somebody, because I have a feeling there'll be lots going on. All right. Well, without any further ado, let's talk energy efficiency. Now, it can mean, Dawn, a lot of things to a lot of people. I have not Googled energy efficiency lately, but I'm guessing it would yield a lot of varying results, opinions, ideas. So to that end, we're going to focus on the things that we deal with in the great state of Texas, primarily those things that are going to be east of, say, Junction, Texas. So we won't be dealing with the extreme panhandle. We won't be dealing with extreme West Texas or those folks that we love very much, but are on mountain time in the western part of our state. We'll be focusing on the bulk of the areas that we have expertise. So we're talking about energy efficiency there, and there are some wild things that you can do, but we're going to probably focus primarily on stuff that keeps the home very tight, energy efficient, but it also makes sense financially and is somewhat affordable for the masses.
Yeah. We tend to focus on the things that you're actually going to get your money back. So with our energy efficiency, we tend to focus on that energy bill and making sure that what we're going to spend money on to make your home efficient is actually going to reward you in a lower electric bill that offsets the cost. Well said.
Well said. Yeah, there are certainly some things you'll be able to do that you can spend. I mean, you can spend a lot of money energy efficient making your home, but like Dawn said, try to focus on things that you can actually will last long enough for you to make your money back. That's a different idea. So, to that end, I say we get started. Did you know that at Tilson Homes, Dawn, it's all about her?
I know. That's why I love it here.
It's all about her. In this case, HERS, which is the home energy rating system. So think of it as a golf score, folks. So the lower, the better. This is how homes are measured on like a tightness scale, so to speak. Home energy ratings, it takes into consideration all these things you see on the right. So it isn't just about one thing. Energy efficiency isn't just about insulation. It isn't just about your AC system. It isn't just about your lights. It's the entire home, every system working together to make the home energy efficient. How much air you use, how your house is attacked from the outside elements. But basically, all this to say, a zero scale would be a net zero energy home. So in other words, you put everything back into the grid that you take out of the grid, you're using zero energy net. So obviously that's not what most people are doing. Most existing homes are probably somewhere between the 130 and 150 range on a HERS rating. Most resales, circa 2006, the old energy, it was about 100. Most Energy Star, because we used to do that program actually many years ago, kind of falls in this really 75 to 90 range, and then most of ours are falling in somewhere in the 58 to 70 range on the HERS score. Now, lots of things can affect that. We're going to talk about it, but basically the energy rating that we use, this is kind of broadly speaking the energy standards that we'll be using. So what in the world makes a home energy efficient? Well, a lot of things can make it energy efficient or not energy efficient. So mainly it's keeping these three elements out. And these are not like Marvel superheroes or anything like that. These are water, air, and heat. We are focused very much on keeping those things out of the house, the way that they're tagged. And if they're in the house, how do we get them out of the house? So, I mean, obviously there's some cases where we deliberately bring water into the house. I know that sounds crazy, but we do encourage folks to shower everywhere.
Well, I think most of the state learned how much they value running water a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, running water, people have a whole newfound appreciation.
Yes.
For water. I know the Allard family found a newfound appreciation for running water. Yeah, we got tired of the bucket brigade, but the bucket brigade it was, and it worked for a little bit. It was fun for like 30 minutes. So we're going to talk today about how we attack these things that are trying to attack our homes. And so we're starting out with water. So why in the world we need to manage water? Well, if you build in anywhere around Southeast Texas, or if you've been alive in the last 30 days and suffered any kind of damage whatsoever from plumbing pipes, something like that, obviously we don't want uncontrolled water running inside the house. So that's a problem. It's really easy when it manifests itself in the way of like a bursted pipe. It's easy to find, it's easy to track down, it's pretty easy to repair in most cases. But there's other places it could be happening that aren't quite as obvious. And those are some of the areas we want to attack from the design phase on into construction and then beyond. So protecting your roof and your walls and the foundation and indoor air quality, those kind of things, water that you can't see that may be growing from just a water vapor or moisture thing behind the wall. That's what we want to mitigate. Obviously, we want to mitigate the other. Busted pipes, not good. So starts, as with all things do, with the foundation. So from the ground up, we want to start managing water. And I know that sounds strange. Obviously, theoretically, we're building out of a floodplain. Most counties will not let you build within the floodplain anymore. Certainly, your homeowner's insurance is going to have a big issue with that. So that's the first and foremost water mitigation. Don't build in a floodplain. That's a good start. And then beyond that, obviously, we want to make sure water is running away from the home all the way around. Now, when we leave, we're going to leave it like that. Minimum of 10 feet all the way around the house. We've got water. We established what's called positive drainage, which means water runs away. It is the homeowner's responsibility to maintain that. So if a homeowner builds like a pool or a metal building or any kind of landscaping they do after the fact that could cause water to run back towards the house, be sure that you do something with that, whatever contractor you've hired, to make sure that doesn't happen, or some kind of drain to get it away. You don't want anything that's going to trap water near your foundation, particularly on one side of the home, because it's going to react differently to water, and that you're going to see the soil heave in some cases. That's where we attribute a lot of foundation problems to that when we do see them. Now, slab on grade, obviously, we're building on the ground. The ground has moisture in it. Concrete itself that we're pouring has moisture in it. So we got to figure out a way to prevent that moisture from transferring back and forth. We don't want the moisture in the ground being sucked. Concrete is porous, which means that it's like a sponge. That you can it can absorb water. So we want to make sure that it doesn't do that from the ground, which is what you see, this black polyethylene plastic that you see we put down before we place the concrete. That is a vapor barrier. So it's to prevent moisture from soaking up into the slab that could ruin your floors. It can stain carpet, actually, things like that. And then once we're framing the house, we have a lot of wall and roof assemblies that the whole point is to shed water. So we're trying to make your house into like a turtle shell, if that makes sense. So like where the scales are kind of laid on top of each other, where water won't get up underneath them.
Okay.
Because there is a misconception about water, and that is that water runs downhill, and it does until it doesn't. So there's this thing called wicking, and anybody that's you could go outside actually and see where maybe it's been raining and water's maybe splashing up onto the siding or on the brick or stone of your home. And before you know it, that water, if you were to go mark it kind of with like a piece of chalk where it was actually splashing up and raining, you could probably go an hour or so later and it's above that point, because the brick or stone is porous, and it's actually the dry area is sucking that moisture up, or the moisture is working its way or wicking its way up the wall. So it's a weird thing, but water can wick. Who knew? Wicking water. So we want to be sure that we can protect the house. Again, we can't defy physics. There's a lot of things we can do at Tilson Homes, Dawn. A lot of things.
Yes.
But the changing the point at which things freeze.
Nope, not it.
Preventing water from doing that which it does. Can't do it. So we protect the house as best we can by putting various, literally, layers of protection. So starting with the rhino liner roof assembly that we use, being sure that overlays, on top of each other all the way down the roof so that water won't go under it. Particularly valleys, gables, those kinds of things. And then, of course, one of the biggest reasons we use the Tyvek drain wrap, because it's specifically designed for humid environments to do. It's not just a house wrap. There's Tyvek house wrap. And we use Tyvek drain wrap, which is a different level of protection specifically for the climates in which we build. And then, of course, they're taped. The seams are taped. It's taped at the window assemblies. It's taped going inside the window assemblies. There's a lot of flashing, like you see that's done above windows here. There's a lot of science that goes into making sure water can't get up under it. Water is very resilient.
It is.
And it likes to wiggle its way into things. Cracks, crevices, anywhere it can build up moisture, it likes to do so, including your masonry wall, your wall systems. So anyway, what you're seeing is these are called weep holes. So you can walk around your house and see various little spots in the brick or in the stone. That's because, going back to here, the stone or the brick that you see is about 1.5 inches to 2 inches away from this wall. So part of masonry is a 5.5 inch, which is a 2x6 masonry ledge, so that there's an air gap between where the actual house is, because the house will sweat. So if it's 72 degrees inside and 95 degrees outside, it's going to be just like a glass of iced tea or like this bottle of water that's condensating. It's why it doesn't look clear. This one's condensated. This one's room temperature. So that condensation builds up on this Tyvek, which is exactly what it's designed to do. The drain wrap has little ribs in it that run vertically so that the water, as it builds up, is encouraged to go down. You can kind of see a black polyethylene that goes along here that will be trimmed later, but it actually goes up behind the Tyvek about 18 inches. And then the moisture goes out these weep holes. So on really humid days or after a good rain, you can actually see moisture kind of below these weep holes in a lot of cases. So you never want to plug these up. Don't stop them. Don't plug them. Don't do any of that. But you can. I've seen people put like steel wool or something like that if they're afraid of critters getting it. Your house is sealed up tighter than this is. Even if a critter gets inside here, it does not mean it can get into your house. Same thing with moisture and air. So anyway, weep holes are very, very important. Doors and windows. So obviously fully flashed to keep air and water from entering. So you can see, you're going to see extensive use of very specific Tyvek tape, which is super, super sticky, super tacky. Don't get it anywhere. If you have hair on your arms, legs, don't get anywhere near this tape because it will find it. It will make your day very miserable. So it's super, super sticky, super resilient to job site debris, and makes an excellent sealing or membrane for waterproofing and air infiltration. So we have silicone sealants so this is folded in from the outside, and then the windows installed over it. Again, we're just creating that turtle shell type barrier to moisture being able to get in. Pan flashing at the windowsills, flashing tapes over the flanges. Obviously, you're seeing also a little bit of polycell here. So all of your exterior penetrations are sealed up with expanding foam. Whether you're in climate zone 2 or 3, we still seal up every exterior door, window, exterior corner of the home. All that stuff is sealed up with expanding foam in the corners. So, and then additional exteriors. Everywhere there's a hole in the house is a place for water or air or critters to be able to pass through. So here you're looking at like a dryer vent right here. This is where a gas, either propane or natural gas, is going to be hooked up, which is kind of why it's marked yellow, but with yellow flexible adhesive tape. And again, all we're trying to do is seal up any of those penetrations, and this will all bear itself out in that blower door test. So when we're measuring how many ACH or how many air changes per hour, the third-party energy inspector that's coming to do that, these are the things that'll end up failing that if these are not properly sealed up. This is where air, water, those kind of things can be sucked through on a test like that. So they'll manifest themselves in a way that's like that. Not to say they can't be fixed after the fact. They can, but it's certainly easier to do it from the get-go. So that's what you're looking at there. And then also this kick-out flashing. So as rain is coming down a gable, you'll see sometimes some people think it looks a little unfinished because it looks like it should be trimmed. It needs to be like trimmed to match that. Well, it actually is done this way for a reason, and that is as the water is coming down, that it actually kicks out. And you don't have it staining running down here because, again, water will run down, but some of the water will end up seeping up underneath this drip edge or seeping up underneath the soffit here or seeping down into behind the brick, and you'll wonder why you have a little stain on your sheetrock on the wall. So this literally kicks the water out, or it kind of makes it flow away from the home.
Okay, so I think we actually had a question about that, about why we leave that drip edge shiny.
Okay. So great question. So what we can do is we can stop here and do some questions. Okay. Next is air management.
All right, awesome. So yeah, we specifically had that question about why we leave it shiny instead of painting it. So I think you've addressed that. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's one reason we leave it that. The other one is when it comes from the factory, it's actually got like a little bit of a coating on it, a little bit oily, and that's to protect it in shipping. And if you were to try and paint it, even probably within the first 6 months to a year, the paint is not going to adhere. So the few times I have seen it painted, or many times when I see it painted, it's typically well after the fact, 6 months to a year or more, and it's weathered a little bit. You can tell when galvanized metal is brand new, it's kind of shiny, versus when it's weathered a little, it's kind of a dull sheen to it. It will take a paint then, but it will not take paint well when it's first installed. Great question.
Okay, sounds good. Martina has an interesting question. She's asking, what is our least built home plan? Just curious to see which ones we build less frequently and if we have walkthrough videos or plan change videos of those plans. So probably not, because if it's not built frequently, we wouldn't have the opportunity to do those walkthrough videos or do those plan changes. So probably not going to have much of a walkthrough for you.
Yeah, we have to put our attention to the others, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just there's more opportunity to do it. As far as like which ones, it's kind of hard to say. I'm trying to find, looking
James usually does
yeah, most of the ones that I'm seeing at the bottom, like we don't build anymore. So like the Hillsborough and the Bridgeport, some of those old good standbys, the Jacksonville, they've been discontinued. If we don't build a lot, the ones that are left are the ones that are selling more.
Yeah, actually it's in the custom home stats and
yeah.
Your point if you want to go see.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. I found it in my email. Mark actually had a second part to his question. Can we pick the electrical plug locations that benefit us, or do we have to leave it in the location on the blueprint?
Okay, so kind of the general rule of thumb there is the ones that are there need to stay where they are. You can add them.
Okay.
So, for instance, they're placed based on the National Electric Code, Mark. That's a great question. Thanks for asking. But there has to be an outlet every so many lineal feet of wall space, for instance. That has to do with how long cords can be, and people are going to trip over them, things like that. So, and that goes for kitchens as well, kitchen appliances.
Yeah,
so,
islands have to have a certain number.
Yeah, you actually can't move them. You can add them. That's what we have found best with the electrical code is when we try to move them, usually the inspector goes up there and says, nope, these are too far apart. You have 15 lineal feet of wall now. That doesn't pass code. Well, yeah, but they're not going to use it over here. They said, yeah, well, I don't care. The code's the code. So you cannot move where they are, but you can add them. Great question.
Which is good. You don't really want there to be a lot of gray in code.
Yeah.
Kind of want that to be a little black and white. David is saying that the average HERS score for homes nationwide is 61, according to ResNet. And can our homes go lower than the average? So this question has actually been asked before. I know that as a company, our average is somewhere between 55 and 65. So absolutely, we can go lower than that. It's one of those things we would figure out after we did your plans, where we're thinking your home is gonna come in on that scale.
Yeah, and I'm not. Well, yeah, we'll leave it at that. Well
okay. Said. All right. David says you mentioned.
So here, I'll go back to that.
Okay.
Go back to this question.
All right.
David, thank you for asking. I want to sure. So there was no such thing as a HERS rating until about 8 or 10 years ago.
Right.
Oh, now think of every home in America that was built before 10 years ago. So let's say prior to 2010, 2008, something like that. That's a lot of houses. Those houses are still changing hands. Those houses are still using electricity. Those houses are still heating, air conditioning, using water. So what ResNet is, he's correct, but that's only of homes with reported HERS scores.
Right. So probably the people who have higher HERS scores aren't actually using HERS score as a measurement.
Would never, yeah, exactly.
Right.
They would peg out on the score. So he's right. Of houses that have been tested, that are tested regularly, that's true. But when you go change hand, like you go buy a resale home, one of those used virus infested homes, that you don't have to have a HERS score for that home to pass inspection. It's not required. So you'll never know what the HERS score is on that unless you were to just pay independently to have that done. So while the nationwide average is 61 of those reported, that is not the nationwide average of all houses that change hands every year.
Well, and it probably would include builders who are building to Energy Star, which we mentioned is a different level, because there's no reason for them to do a HERS score because that's not how they're measuring the energy efficiency of their homes. So it's kind of a skewed data point.
So, but thanks for pointing that out, David. Appreciate that.
Okay.
And ResNet's it's got great data. Very good data.
Awesome. All right. David is also saying, we mentioned a blower door test. Do we do that prior to putting up sheetrock?
When do we do that, Dawn?
We do that just a little bit before closing. So your home is finished because we want to make sure that we have sealed up all of the holes that have been added, make sure that we've got everything in place that we want in place. And that's when we would do that blower door test. And it's done at the same time as the duct blaster test that we'll talk about later.
Perfect.
Awesome. Fernando is asking, his foundation was poured on Thursday. Is it too late to change to spray foam insulation?
Potentially, yeah, because I know all the HVAC equipment has already been probably ordered, particularly with lead times that are happening now. It would significantly change the HVAC layout. It would change how the house is framed. Actually, there are some things we do different on the framing.
Yeah, because there's no tech shield and no vents.
Yep, all that stuff.
Soffit vents.
Yeah, the pre-drilled soffit vents, the way the roofing is done, it is very different. So it probably is a little late to do that.
Okay. Shantae is asking about the average price range for our homes.
Dawn, what say you?
So our prices are based on the county where your land is located and where you'll be building. So there's a little bit of variation, but in general, we start from the 150s and go to well over 600,000, just depending upon what you want to build. But all of our pricing is actually on our website. So if you go to the page that lists out the floor plans, once you select a county, it'll actually populate the starting prices for every individual home as built in the unincorporated areas of that county.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Let's see. Martina's clarifying. She's saying the plans that are active in our portfolio. So at this point, I would say probably our newer ones.
Yeah, they're looking at Palacios, the Parker, the Nueces,
Goliad.
Marion, Velasco, Victoria. So those now some of them haven't been with us very long, and some of them are up for an overhaul. And that's kind of where we use that list, Martina, to drive those decisions. Is okay, is the plan itself, is it just run its course? Are there some design tweaks that we could make to make it more appealing, make it more usable for folks that are using it? So those are some of them. Those are some of the ones. Okay,
awesome. Hugh is asking for zone 2, how much would it be to add the spray foam?
I think it's either $1 or $2 per square foot of living area. So I don't have that in front of me, Hugh, but any design center location could check that out.
Okay. Jabo is asking, on a breezeway between your home and a detached garage, can the ground below the breezeway be left as is, or is it better if both the breezeway ends be the same foundation?
So we're not going to leave it as is. We certainly want, because it's going to be supporting some type of roof structure. We're probably not going to end up tying it into the foundation necessarily. We'll probably leave some kind of an expansion joint. It will be sitting on a slab of its own that has like a perimeter beam. So it won't be flat work that it's sitting on. It will be slab, but it's probably not going to be anchored per se to the garage where it is or to the home. It'll have expansion joint between the two, but it will be engineered along with the rest of the foundation.
Okay. All right. And he's clarifying the reason he was asking is he was thinking about installing asphalt instead of concrete.
Yeah, I would almost never recommend asphalt.
Okay.
There's not a lot of scenarios that I'd recommend doing asphalt. I say that it's not going to be a less expensive alternative long term. So because of the upfront work that needs to be done to put stabilized material underneath it to make it last a long time, it's going to be about the same as concrete. And then if you decide not to do that, which makes it less expensive than concrete, you will spend the rest of the time that you own the house repairing asphalt.
Filling potholes as the ground settles.
Yeah. Asphalt's not usually although if I were going to put it anywhere, maybe that's the application, because you usually don't have cars on it ever, ideally, on purpose.
All right. That is actually all the questions that we have.
Rock and roll. Well, guys, keep asking your questions. We want to help you. We want to make it all make sense for you. So we are going to forge ahead with our presentation and keep asking your questions. We can't wait to get to them. We want to be sure we answer. There's one about driveway at some point, wasn't there? Slab.
Oh, yes, there is one question about driveways. You want to handle that now?
Yeah, we might as well.
So we had a question that was set in ahead of time. Somebody asking that their subcontractor who they were going to have put in their driveway said that he was not going to be able to drill into the foundation to attach the driveway to the home, concerned that it would void the warranty. So what say you, Eric?
All right. So here's kind of where we are. We are going to, broadly speaking, discourage drilling into the foundation with like a hammer drill, which you need to drill concrete with, to place that rebar in there and anchor a driveway. A couple of reasons why. The main reason is a safety. So obviously that there are post-tension cables running in both directions in that slab. Now, granted, they're, half inch to 3/4 inch diameter. You got a 24-inch or so slab. The odds of you hitting them are low, but if you hit one, it's going to be
odds something bad happens going to be high.
Yeah, that could be very bad. So we definitely that's safety. The other one is post-tension foundations are designed to be a floating foundation, so they move as a unit. So they don't move a lot. That's a little extreme. They don't move that much, but they are designed to move
like this
together. Yeah. They don't want to deflect. They want to move together. So the problem with boring into them with anchoring a slab, a driveway on one side, is you've now kind of anchored your floating foundation. So this side may want to go down, but it can't because you've got a driveway that's maybe on a different type of soil, preventing it from doing that. So broadly speaking, we're going to discourage boring into the slab and anchoring. They don't need to be anchored. So my advice is to put proper base underneath the driveway where it's going to go. Be sure it's properly compacted, that that's placed properly with select fill or road base, whatever you're putting down before you do the actual concrete driveway itself into the garage, and then have an expansion joint between the garage slab and the driveway itself that'll allow for expansion and contraction of the home. Because while it's concrete is kind of concrete, but there could be a variation and it could react differently to expansion and contraction. So you wouldn't want those two fighting each other by touching.
Yeah.
So I highly advise expansion joint and then and properly stabilized and compacted material underneath. And you really shouldn't have to worry about it separating.
Okay. Makes sense.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Let's talk about air then.
All right. Let's talk about air. We got to manage air. We got to keep air from blowing into the house from the outside, and air that we're paying to heat and cool inside from getting away. So we want to enhance our comfort, improve our durability. Obviously, overall, the most important thing to most people for energy efficiency is lower monthly bills. That's what most people want. They want high quality air.
The environment, but we like lower bills.
Right. Yes. We have found in our experience, everyone cares a lot about the environment until it starts to really negatively affect their pocketbook, which is understandable. I don't think any of our customers are bad stewards. In fact, they're all very good stewards of the environment, which is why they're not doing a master plan community where they go in and ace all the trees.
That always makes me so sad.
We love our trees. So lower monthly bills. Let's figure out how we're going to do that. Well, if we're going to build these houses super tight, which is the goal, we do have to figure out a way to get fresh air in them because we don't want to be breathing the same stale air over and over and over again. So we do use fresh air intakes and a damper system, which is a fancy word for a metal disc that opens and closes. And in this particular case, it's closed. And what this will do is this will rotate 90 degrees. You can actually do it manually here, or it's controlled through the thermostat. You see the wires down here, where it will open to bring fresh air into the home and then expel the stale air out, which is why you have the two over here in the soffit. So, and it does that slowly over time, so you're not losing the efficiency that you're paying to cool or heat the air that you bring in, but you are bringing in fresh air into the home. Not dissimilar from your the AC in your car.
Right.
You have regular AC, which is bringing fresh air in. Then you have like the little max AC button, which is recirculating the air that's inside the car or the truck. That's why that one's usually colder, because the AC is not having to work as hard to cool it because it's already cooled. Filtration. By the way, there's not a max AC setting on houses, as far as I know. That would be bad for your health long term. Ideally, you get out of your car eventually. So some of us never get out of the car.
Or at least feel that way.
That's true. Filtration. We definitely want to filter that air that we're bringing in and that we're cycling through. So we use media filters. So this is about a 4-inch thick media filter. You'll find this as you go up into the attic, very easily accessible. Typically, you don't have to even get off of the disappearing stairway, the ladder that we use to access it. You can reach it from there. If not, you're very close. And you pop 2 springs loose, open it up, and they're good for about 1 month per inch is kind of what the guideline is. So if it's a 4-inch media filter, it's good to go for about 4 months. Change it out. There are a plethora of different, you can get HIPAA filters, MERV ratings of 4, 8, 12, 15, like super efficient stuff, probably ionized. Who knows? There's electrified ones I've seen people use.
Okay.
You don't need all that. Get them on Amazon, get them at your local big box store. Have you a couple, 3 or 4 or 5 of them ready to go. They do take up quite a bit of space. I wouldn't recommend keeping them in the attic because attics can be kind of dusty. So you don't want to, unless they're in plastic. If they're in plastic, attic's a great place to keep them. And then change that out every 3 or 4 months, and you're good. You don't have to, we don't put the little thin return air filters in the returns. In fact, you have a return air in every single bedroom. Traditionally, pretty much every room that has a door, but not closets or bathrooms, but usable, so studies, bedrooms, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's actually bad for your system if you put the filters in the return air vents. Don't do it. It's making your system work harder. It's burning more energy. I learned this the hard way. In one of my homes, we kept blowing out the capacitor on our air conditioning unit every 3 months or so. Yeah. And it's because we were using the fancy filters that everybody told us was good to use. So don't do that.
And your compressor's going,
exactly.
Stop. So great advice. Also, we got to get the kitchen air out. I recommend you use, particularly these, as tight as homes are, use these vents, guys. When you're cooking bacon or whatever else you're cooking that's going to create vapor, kick these vents on and get that exhaust out of the home, because the houses are tight these days, and that stuff will stay around for a long, long time. And they do vent all the way out. So vent them out, turn them on, leave them on while you're cooking. And also, I would encourage you to use your bathroom and utility room vents, because a lot of moisture can build up in the bathrooms, taking a shower, taking a bath, anything like that, washing and drying clothes. It's a very humid process. So kick on those bathroom and utility room vents, get that moisture out of the house. It's making your AC work less if you'll help it pump this moisture out. That's the point of these. The more you build it up, the poorer the air quality and the harder your AC is going to have to work to dehumidify the air, which is what an air conditioner kind of does, is to extract the moisture out of the air. Well, if we're deliberately dumping moisture into it, we're making the AC work that much harder. So don't be afraid to kick on the utility room vents, bathroom vents, all that kind of, any exhaust vents. And yeah, you want these to be completely sealed, again, where they go out of the house. We want it properly sealed up, suspended, all that kind of good stuff. So again, air is not coming in from the outside. And move on along.
Yes, because it's important to note that the vent is to get things out and the intake is to get things in. And there are 2 separate processes, and you also want them to be in 2 separate places, because you don't want the intake pulling the nasty stuff that you're trying to get out of the house. So you want to make sure they're far apart.
We wouldn't want fresh air intakes put anywhere near like where this is blowing out. So great point. Yeah, vent is stuff that we want out. Like when you're venting to someone about maybe a family conversation at Thanksgiving. That's never a good thing. No one vents about good things. You vent about things that bother you. That's what venting is. So yeah, great point. Well said. HVAC ductwork. Yeah, that's another thing. These are good, efficient examples. Obviously, you're going to see a whole bunch of ductwork. That's when you start running return airs to every room. You got supplies that are going to every room. Obviously, you've got exhaust fans. So you're going to see in your attic a significant amount of ductwork. And all that is working to make your home very energy efficient and air quality. We're focusing a lot on indoor air quality.
Right. And one question that comes up a lot is why we put our HVAC systems in the attic. And it's because of all that ductwork. We've got to put it somewhere we have room for it. And we don't want to take that room out of your living area.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. So you would need an area equivalent to about at least 6 foot by 8 foot minimum if you tried to put it downstairs. And Also, by doing that, you're actually adding, of course, more ductwork, because now it all has to come to where it was in the attic, and it all has to come down another 8 or 10 feet, depending on how tall your ceilings are, down into that room. So you're thereby making it even that much less efficient. So something to think about.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to mess with your ductwork. So once it's up there, it's up there. All right. So return air. To keep the air balanced, we actually typically use return airs in every single room. And there's some places we will use what's called a jump duct. Those are done from time to time. And again, this is more about pressure equalization, because again, the homes are very, very tight, and also temperature regularity. So you ever been in a house where the AC kicks on and it'll like slam a door, or you can hear it kind of sucking air under a door? That's usually because that air handler is struggling to pull air. If the door is closed in a big room, like a bedroom, and the return air is in a hallway nearby, and that's the only return air you got, it's going to be working very hard to suck that air. And that's where these jumper ducts and the return airs in every room come in handy. It's actually making the air handler and thereby the compressor work less. So not having to work as hard, makes it last longer.
It's kind of along those lines of, like you talked about, how we can't defy the law of physics. We can't defy the law of children either. You know, if your air conditioning system's only going to work well if all the bedroom doors are open and you have kids that are teenagers, we all know that's not going to happen. So that's why we put a return air in every bedroom, so that everything just functions better.
Some of the worst punishment on earth is making a teenager just leave their door open. Like,
I know.
Man, what an effective little tool that is. Anyway, again, back to any kind of life questions you have, ask them. We'll be glad to answer.
Parenting tips, apparently.
Parenting tips. We can help with that. I'm great at parenting other people's kids. No problem. Very
we
good.
all are.
Super good at that. All right. So, and then finally, should we pause here for a couple of questions before we get into managing heat?
Sure.
Right.
Let's take a couple questions.
It's a scary slide, the heat.
It is. All righty. So
I did have an answer on the spray foam, by the way. It was $1.88 a square foot. So I said between 1 and 2. That's pretty close.
And that's taking into account the fact that we have the everything that goes with it. So
that's right.
The humidifier, all that.
Yeah.
Rebecca's asking if my subdivision property is situated between 2 streets and one is higher than the other. Does the house need to be higher than both or just one? We're talking about water and flood purposes.
Rebecca, that's a great question. So ultimately it will be up to if the county or subdivision has a requirement, we'd have to meet that. That's primarily. So some places have, I know Galveston County, I think you have to be 18 inches above the center line of the street, for instance. Well, they're going to pick the higher street in that situation. So that's a county reg. Now, if you're not governed by that, then it would simply be you don't have to be higher than you have to be high enough where we can establish positive drainage away from the home, a minimum of 10 feet away. That's it. So we're going to build, depending on where we're building, somewhere between at least probably 11 and 15 inches above the natural ground that's there. So we're already going to be above what would be the high point on the property, or at least where you're building on the property. So we build that up, and then that allows us to bring in a little bit of final grading and select fill, and kind of make sure that not select fill. I'm sorry, bring in final grade material to make sure we establish that positive drainage away from it. So check first and foremost with your county, city, or subdivision, find out if they have a requirement, and then if not, it's just going to be a matter of where you want the house to be placed. It doesn't have to be obviously out of the floodplain. Did I mention out of the floodplain? I like building houses
out of the floodplain. We don't like floodplains.
Good idea.
Troylyn is asking about how much extra is the cost to add a driveway and a garage.
So garage pricing, garage pricing is going to vary by plan. So you're looking probably between $15,000 and $20,000 per car on a attached or detached garage. Get you pretty close. Driveway is going to vary probably even more wildly than that based on where it's being done. Concrete prices can vary quite a bit across the state of Texas. So I would figure somewhere between $5 and $10 a square foot for flat work, for driveway, sidewalk, that kind of stuff. So it really depends on exactly where you're building, and that's something that we can certainly help you out with after we do the site evaluation.
Okay, great. Hugh is asking for the kitchen exhaust. Do we have inline motor instead of motor at the vent hood?
So typically the motor is at the vent hood, Hugh. That's a great question. Sometimes, depending on the distance that it's having to travel, you'll have to put in an inline motor. But most of our design, actually all of our designs are done where we can meet the CFM, how many cubic feet per minute that it's rated. And also you don't want to put too much motor behind it, because as tight as the houses are, you can actually start sucking the fresh air that's in the house out of it through the vent. So that's something we discovered in our 90-year journey. So you can overdo anything, turns out, even in Texas. So,
all right.
Yeah, what you don't want to do is start sucking the nice, beautiful, cold, air-conditioned air that you've paid money to do out of the house and blowing it out the roof. So there's a happy medium, and we do have those calculations, and it's taken into consideration when we do the manual, Jay. The HVAC contractor knows what type of hood we're using, and those and calculate, takes all that into consideration with how many cubic feet per minute need to be dumped in or supplied into every room. Great question.
Okay, makes sense. Juan is asking if we will be making a Crockett model live tour video in the future. He'd like to see what that model looks like, customized or modified with a large kitchen island and other changes. So we can look. We have a video tour of the actual Crockett model plus the 3D, but I don't know that if we have one with a modified kitchen. So we'll take a look and see if we can find one for you. And Pablo G asks if we should use a realtor or a land broker when looking for land. I would use someone that knows land. So a realtor, if they're knowledgeable about land and building a custom home on your land, good bet. If not, land broker.
Yeah, there are. Pablo, that's a great question. There are some. Legally, they're the same thing. Okay. The only difference between a realtor and a broker is a broker has typically got more experience and has taken a different licensing exam. But you can have a broker that's never sold a vacant piece of land. That's possible. And in turn, you could have a realtor that they sell nothing but land. That's not a broker. So Texas Association of Realtors does have some ethics. They're more than guidelines. They're pretty well hard, fast rules about competency. Realtors are supposed to, if they are being asked to do something that's kind of outside their level of competency, it's not to say they can't do it, because you got to learn somehow, but you got to bring somebody into the deal that knows what they're doing.
Right.
So yeah, like Dawn said, focus on somebody who specializes in land and particularly rural land. In that case, that'd be something to think about. But we can give you some. I think we probably done a video on things for sure to ask for. When you're looking at a piece of property, flood zone, title commitment, set of deed restrictions, and survey. Those are a really, really good start on. Anyway.
Okay. All right. And David is just clarifying on the price that we quoted for the all foam house. Yes, that does include spray foaming the attic. Because what happens is we take that
living area. Yes, it's a 2,000 square foot house, 2,000 times $188, and that will spray foam the walls and the attic. It also includes the credit for the tech shield and the pre-drill ventilated soffit, but also includes having to add a dehumidifier. So it's not just insulation. Like there's a lot more to it, like Dawn mentioned earlier.
Yeah, we actually, I think, talk about that later in the presentation, the difference of what we do in your home if you have the traditional insulation versus the spray foam.
You better put it in gear then.
All right. Well, let's go back in then. Let's talk about heat.
Let's talk about heat. I know it's not been on people's mind of late because it was freezing here in Texas, but the bulk of the time, what we're combating in this great state where we build is the 9 months plus of the year that heat is beating the snot out of our houses and trying to get in and make us uncomfortable. So what do we do to manage heat? Doors and windows. And by the way, these help with the cool as well. So
right. Yeah, it goes both ways.
Vinyl window is great. It's a very poor conductor of hot and cold, which makes it a great insulator. So that's why we use a vinyl tilt sash window. You're looking at U factor, you look at your solar heat gain coefficient. So that part, the vinyl part's great. It's easy. It obviously but that's not why you buy a window. Why do you buy a window? So you can see out of it. So the glass is where it's going to get attacked. So that's where your solar heat gain coefficient, U factor, the low E or low emissivity rating on it, which allows light to pass through but keeps radiant heat or UV rays from getting in there. These are all science that we take into consideration when designing the homes. Thermal bridging. We actually had someone ask last week.
We did. Yes.
Gold star for that fella or fella. Gold star for the reduced thermal bridging. So there are some videos we've done about this, about these California corners are basically a way to get insulation and sneak it in here behind instead of having the wall that goes all the way there. You know, it does use a little bit less wood, but it's just as strong. It's just a way to fill the cavities with something actually that has an R value, which wood basically has an R value of like 1. So for instance, here, we do a window header or an exterior door header, we're going to put a piece of 1/2-inch foam between there instead of 1/2-inch plywood. Because again, the structure is being held by the 2/6 or whatever header is necessary. The 1/2-inch plywood between there is not doing anything. So we're like, hey, let's make it an R3 foam. At least then it's got some more R value in it. So these are, again, thermal bridging is anywhere that heat or cold can transfer through by 2 items touching, one that's exposed to the heat and one that's not. So obviously your OSB out here is going to be attacked by heat or cold. The sheetrock inside is not. So you got to break that thermal bridge by putting insulation back there. Same thing here. You got the outside 2/6 header being attacked by heat or cold. The inside one is not. It's nice and cozy at a constant 72 degrees. We want to break that thermal bridge. So we're actually in the home building industry, we're about breaking down bridges.
No more building bridges.
No more building bridges. We want to break them, crush them, insulate them. It's a nice way to do
Insulate them. There you go.
And then air sealing. All right. We want to fill everything. You've seen this stuff. There's a brand here. So great stuff. Any kind of expanding foam is to be used. Polycell, you'll hear it called. But basically anywhere there could be a penetration, ceiling to the attic, exterior walls, that kind of thing. Those are all going to be sealed up. And even we even caulk around like light fixtures, air registers. We'll look at that stuff here in just a second. The very first thing we put down on the foundation before we even start framing is a sill seal, which is a sill plate sealing, like a gasket, to keep air from being able to get sucked into the house. Because when that AC kicks on, it's sucking air. So what we don't want to do is be able to suck air in from the outside. We want to suck air in from where it's designed to do that. And so that's all these thermal breaks and gaskets keep that from happening. And that's what, you're going to see some really weird, funky stuff when your house is under construction.
Yeah.
We promise that aliens didn't get in here and mess on everything. This is by design. Any penetrations going up through the top plate. So from the living area, the building envelope, as we call it, up into the attic. In this case, it's not part of the building envelope. We want that sealed off so that we don't lose that cold air, or else also so cold air in the wintertime doesn't come down. There's some houses you can go to, older, some not so old, but you can put your hand up to an outlet on an exterior wall and you can actually feel cold air blowing on the back of your hand on that outlet. That's what this stops. It's another breaking of a thermal bridge.
Yep. Pretty much everywhere we cut a hole in your house, we're going to seal. We're going to put in whatever we were putting in that hole, and then we're going to seal all around it.
That's right. Yep. So that goes to venting and light fixtures and outlets, and everywhere we can. Again, these are all things that will manifest themselves on a duct blaster test or a blower door test. And we can actually use little thermal imaging camera things and see where it's happening so that we know where to go attack it if there's a spot we missed. So, even down to the dipping stairways we use, they have an R10 rating on the doors. Again, and it's weather stripped, just like an exterior door, to keep that air that's up in the attic from penetrating down below, and to keep the air that you're paying to heat and being able to get up there. So, and then in climate zone 2, obviously you'll be doing radiant barrier decking. So this it blocks 97% of the sun's radiant heat. So it's actually a foil backed foam on the back side of your roof decking. We're going to have a ridge vent going all the way across all the ridges so that you'll see like a little air gap at the top. This allows for passive ventilation when coupled with the pre-drilled ventilated soffit. So as just a light breeze blowing across is going to help bring that air, humid air out of that attic and get it out. These are kind of the vents we don't like to use. We prefer the ridge vents because they're passive. You don't have to worry about them functionally working with a motor.
Right.
That. And everybody likes a good whirly bird. The problem with the whirly bird's quite passive. Okay. The problem with the whirly bird is there's more hot air above here because heat does that thing. We remember the physics we can't undo. Heat rises. Yeah. So there'll be more hot air trapped up here that can never, ever, ever get out. And this assumes that all the heat's going to come out of this like 8-inch hole. So it gets some heat out. Yes, the turbine itself will help draw the heat, but again, you're not going to draw it from up above. So ridge vents, best way to go.
Yep. R
value. This is can be a polarizing topic. You see that as a little HVAC humor. I didn't prep it. That just happened naturally.
See, that's why we're only kind of funny.
That's true. That's why Hannah said we're only kind of funny. Yeah. All right. So R value, true definition. So, the capacity of an insulating material to resist heat flow. That is the definition of R value. So what is the capacity? And everything has capacity, right? A piece of wood has capacity. A piece of insulation has capacity. A piece of sheetrock has capacity. Everything has some capacity to resist heat flow. Some things are better than others. So wood is not a very good insulator. Insulation is a great insulator, which is why we use it. So there's a balance here, obviously. Less wood makes more insulation, but you got to have enough wood to hold the house up for a long time. So there's a balance we have to strike. That's what they call a paradox there. Almost a dichotomy, perhaps. Different subject, different day. California corners, ladder tees. We're doing some things differently to be able to, some of the advanced framing methods, break thermal barriers or reduce thermal bridging, and then also to create more energy efficient homes. So this is in a climate zone 2 area, you'll be getting bat insulation. The code requires R13 in the walls and R30 in the attic. We're going to bump that up a little bit. We're using R15 in your exterior walls and R38 in your attic. Again, for this part of the United States, that's plenty. There's not really a whole lot to gain beyond that. You start the law of diminishing return starts to kick in that you mentioned at the very beginning. Right. Then obviously if you're in climate zone 3 or opt for spray foam, a little bit different deal. We won't be doing radiant barrier decking because as you can see, they are spraying that insulation up against the attic decking. So there's no reason to spend money on the radiant barrier because it's not covering it up. And then we'll fill the cavities. And actually the R value is in fact lower.
Which is very surprising to me because everybody always thinks that R value higher means better.
And that's not true. So the real advantage to spray foam that it has over conventional bat or blown-in insulation is the tightness that it makes. So the less air that you lose. Air has a harder time getting into the house, and you don't lose as much air through gaps because they're all completely sealed up. So we get rid of soffit vents, ridge vents, radiator barrier. We talked about that. We got to have, if you're doing gas, you got to have a much higher efficient, super high efficiency gas furnace. Got to have some fresh air intakes, which we're doing either way. You definitely have to have a dehumidifier. A little bit smaller AC system. You can actually over AC your house, particularly in spray foam if you're not careful, where it won't run long enough. It'll short cycle, which is not good for it. And obviously, we got to have an attic supply and return. But we take care of, obviously, all of that science when we're doing the Manual J. Here's a rough sketch of where the government in their infinite wisdom has drawn this imaginary line of where the climate magically changes. So
north-south makes sense. It's that west area that just
west-east. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about
that. Whatever.
So, anyway, and then again, folks, they're not prescriptive in how we reach the air changes per hour. Tilson has decided this is how we're going to do it. Spray foam does not have to be the standard up in North Texas. We've chosen to do that. Because we think our customers get a lot of benefit from it. It's definitely a way we can meet the air changes per hour and get an energy efficient home at the same time. There are other ways to do that. In our opinion, the spray foam was the best way to do it. You are getting a little bit less R value, but again, it's tight. So you get R13 in your walls, R22 in the roof up against the decking, as opposed to the R15 and R38. So
now, Eric, when you're talking about air changes per hour, what does that mean?
It means exactly that. So how many times the air turns over the house completely So let's say your house had 100,000 cubic feet of air in it. How many times that leaves the house and comes into the house over a 1 hour period?
Okay.
So the total changeover of the air inside of your home. Great question. So obviously, the more you're going to have to run a little bit more HVAC because you're losing some of that air, whereas less. But again, it's has a lot more to do in super cold climates where people are combating 0 or below 0 degrees Fahrenheit for a good portion of time, which we don't have to do, with the exception of the week of February 15th, 2021. But apart from that, it's just not something that we've seen in the last 100 years.
Right.
So,
okay.
How do we make sure that this happens, Dawn? Can you tell us?
Well, we have a third party come out and inspect it for us. So these are the energy inspections and tests that we run. So the first is that duct blaster test, which we're blowing air through the ducts to see where it's coming out. So we're watching to see if there's any leakage, make sure that we're sealing those up. The second one is the blower door test, which we put this nice fan on your front door, open it up, seal everything else, and then suck all the air out of your house and see, how that's working. And if we don't test out at the level that we want to be, we pull out those fancy infrared guns that Eric was talking about and run through the house to see where is heat and air coming in so we can seal up all those little nooks and crannies that we might have missed the first time.
That's right. HVAC units, SEER rating, seasonal energy efficiency ratio. Traditionally, a higher SEER rating indicates a more efficient HVAC system. Obviously, you can get really carried away with this, as you can anything else. There is a law of diminishing returns, particularly getting the super high efficient, high SEER rated. I personally start to question if the equipment will last long enough to recoup those costs. We have found what we believe to be a really happy medium, using 15 and 16 SEER HVAC equipment, depending on the actual piece of equipment itself, would call for the manual J. But basically, it's the right size. It's the optimal size HVAC system for your house. Not too much, not too little. Goldilocks, just right.
And we're measuring that SEER inside the house, not outside, right?
That's right. Yeah, and it can be measured different ways. It's a great point. So it's not like horsepower in a vehicle. So when you see these advertisements of the Chevrolet this has 600 and whatever horsepower, the Ford this has 420 horsepower. SEER rating is 16 SEER, SEER rating is 18 SEER, SEER rating is 14 SEER. We like to measure it where it counts, which is at the air register. Okay, just like to me on a car, where it counts is at the wheels. If you're a true American, at the rear wheels. Okay, American muscle. That's where power is. So anyway, if you have a 420 horsepower car in the engine, you might be like 391 horsepower at the rear wheels by the time it goes to the engine, which goes to the transmission, which goes to the drive shaft, which goes to the rear differential, which goes to the wheels. You lose some of that efficiency. Well, the same is true on an HVAC system. You've got the outside unit that may be 16 SEER or something like that. And by the time it comes inside the house and goes up into the attic and to the air handler, then out that ductwork, through the fresh air intake, all that kind of stuff, and down to the, master bedroom walk-in closet, it may be 15.2 SEER. So that's what we're talking about. Great point. Mm-hmm. Smart thermostats. We don't like dumb thermostats. We don't like them. We like smart things. So yeah, they're programmable. They're Wi-Fi enabled. Of course, you can control them from anywhere in the world that you have access to the interwebs. So if you got all the way over to Paris, not that you can go there right now, but if you did and forgot that you didn't turn your AC off or down or whatever, don't ever turn it off. Turn it up. You need to always be cycling. If you got a weekend place, you build a new home, run it up to 80, 82, but do run it. Do not turn it off. The moisture will build up inside these tight homes. Not have a comfortable place you go back to. And then your LEDs, we use all LED bulbs. So throughout the home, and they're a lot more energy efficient. They do last longer. They don't last as long as they say they do. I'll be honest. They just, the ones that say 25, 50, 100,000 hours.
Don't have kids.
Don't do that. But suffice it to say, they are infinitely more efficient than incandescent, because this is just measured out the wattage. It does not count the heat that they put off that your AC has to compensate for. Most places don't measure that, but that's a real number. So, but it does, lighting can account for up to 20 to 30% of your electric bill. So it's really, really important that you get LED lighting. And then we do have a comparison that sheet that we can give you the design centers. And then I want to get to questions. I know that was warp speed. Appreciate everyone's patience. Now we go to questions.
Yes. Well, first we have Mark saying that he talked to us a few months ago after not building with us 15 years ago. We recommended Wendy and he signed a contract on Sunday. Wendy was awesome in every way. Definitely great experience. Thank you. We will pass that along to Wendy.
Thanks for watching too.
Let's see. We have a question about the buildup around the home from water retention. How much will Tilson move the home up, down within the price of the home? And at what point measurement does it become the customer's cost?
All right. So that depends on where you're building. Every county has a different set of specs for us. Tilson builds to different counties. So it really is very, very county specific. I highly recommend you get with your local design center because we do different heights based on where we're building in the 100+ counties we build. So sometimes, like I said, it's 11 inches, sometimes it's 14 inches, and that's just the starting height. And then in some counties, we allow for 6 inches out of level, some 12, some 18, some 24. So it varies significantly across the state. So that's a very, very county and site specific question that your design center can help answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Trilyn has a question. If you have your property already, do you still need a realtor? Also, can you build any of our homes in Fort Bend County? So I'll take the second half. Yes, we can build any of our homes anywhere that we build. So any plan that you're looking at can be built anywhere within our building area. And Eric, realtors.
Yeah, Trilyn, you do not need a realtor to buy a home, to build a home on a piece of property. You don't need one to buy one in a subdivision. You don't have to have a realtor. It's not to say you can't. You could, but you don't need it. Most builders, including us, we have our own contract. So we're not going to use a Texas Association of Realtors promulgated form. We're going to use one of the TAB or Texas Association of Builders contracts, or most builders have their own contract if they aren't using the TAB contracts, because it's a little bit different animal than buying an existing home. So there's no point in using a realtor for that. But you absolutely do not have to have a realtor to build a home.
All right. Rebecca is asking, how important is the orientation of windows and doors towards or away from the sun? Should an elevation with more windows be aimed north when possible?
All right, Rebecca, great question. I would say it matters a lot less than it used to. So back when it was single pane aluminum windows, it's a big deal. It's not the case anymore. These double pane vinyl windows with low E, glass, it really doesn't matter as much which direction the house is facing. You need to focus on facing exactly where you want your view to be. You're not going to see a tremendous amount of heat pouring in anymore, like the old days.
Yeah.
So no, I wouldn't try and aim it north when possible, anything like that. I'd aim it the direction you want to look at when you wake up in the mornings.
Well, and your air conditioning, your HVAC system is going to be designed for that. That is something that is taken into account. When they're doing the manual J calculations to design your HVAC system, they're looking at how much of the exterior is windows, what direction are those windows facing, all of that kind of stuff comes into play. So we design around it. So like Eric was saying, do what's going to make you happy and we'll take care of it on the other side.
Yeah, that's a great point.
All right. Let's see. Samuel is asking if we offer the option for smart switches for light switches and plugs for a smart home.
We actually do not, mostly because there's a bunch of different ones out there. Some that work with Alexa, some that work with Google. What is her name? Does Google have a name, or is it just Hey Google?
Just Hey Google.
Google's just inert. Don't say it too loud. Oh my gosh, they're going to hear you.
Well, that's what I was trying to. I don't think I have a Google device in here.
Sure you don't.
We can't say the A name too much because she will start talking to us.
She will start talking. Okay. Yeah. So no, we don't, Samuel. We don't have one. But it's not to say that we couldn't entertain something like that. We could always reach out to our electricians and see what they've had the best and worst experiences in, and go from there. And
make sure it's comfortable with whatever your
compatibility is. Whatever artificial device you have in your
whatever you're not human that you like to talk to, which brand you like. Let's see. David's asking, in an all foam house, the conditioned space and the attic space temperature, is it very close?
Well, that is David's very subjective to say it's very close. It's certainly closer than it would be in a bat insulated home. Yeah, so you're going to notice it's a considerable difference walking into the attic of a spray foam house versus walking into the attic of a bat insulation home.
Which also is Doug's question.
Yeah, particularly in the summertime, you're going to notice. And to get a feel for that, maybe run through go into the Fayetteville up in Waxahachie in like July, and you'll know that it's significantly different. So
yeah, Doug is asking the same thing. So he's trying to figure out if he could possibly store things in his spray foamed attic.
You can. Obviously we don't design the homes around storing things in attics, so we're not going to, ductwork is going to be ductwork, electrical's going to run where the electrical needs to run, plumbing's going to run where plumbing needs to run. From an efficiency standpoint, you want the shortest distance between 2 points most of the time, so kind of an A to B situation. But yeah, I mean, suffice to say, there's definitely going to be room for storing things, and then from a temperature perspective, I mean, I'm not going to go so far as to call it climate control, but pretty close on spray foam.
All right. David is asking if he can do other select advanced framing for more R value.
Potentially, we'd want to get an idea of what it is and make sure that our framers are A, comfortable with it, and B, that we're comfortable with them executing something like that, and that we're not what the possible ramifications of that might be from a design perspective.
Okay. And then he's also curious if we will build a tighter home than 3 air changes per hour.
So almost certainly, if you build a spray foam home, it will be tighter than 3. So 3 is like fail.
Right.
Anything 3 or over would be a failing grade. So yeah, we have spray foam homes that are coming in under 2. Actually, we've got some 1.6s, 1.8s that are coming in pretty regularly.
Okay.
So yeah.
Mark is asking when we're putting water and electric to the house, at what depth are the trenches dug to prevent freezing damage, and how many feet to or away from the house are included in the house pricing?
So 50 feet's included in the pricing, and then to prevent freezing in this neck of the woods, if you're 12 inches in the ground, it'll prevent it. Now they're deeper than that; they're typically about 24 to 30 inches, but if you're 12 inches below there, even in the freeze we just had, 12 inches in the ground is plenty. I mean, our ground here does not freeze.
Okay.
The ground did not freeze, even when it got down to 0, or 11 degrees for 2 or 3 nights in a row, because in the daytime it does tend to heat up. Our snow doesn't sit there for months with freezing temperatures on end for weeks and weeks. That's where you have real damage, is you actually, the ground itself will freeze. Minnesota, Wyoming, the Dakotas. It just doesn't happen here. Even in the extreme freeze of the February 15th week,
okay,
ground did not freeze.
Which is probably also the answer to this one. He's wondering if the water pipes are insulated in the ground. Sounds like
nope,
they don't.
The ground themselves. That's a great. Yeah, they don't know. The PEX piping is done directly in the ground.
Okay. David is asking if he can.
They are insulated in the attic. I'll put that out. Sorry.
Yeah. David's asking if he can pick the HVAC system that he wants.
Probably not, David. The reason being is that ours are designed by the HVAC contractors in conjunction with the Manual J to be the correct size for the home. We have had a lot of customers back when we did used to allow that. It rarely turned out well because it doesn't take the whole picture, like Don was talking about, into perspective. So if you're interested in a more efficient, we'll be glad to get with the HVAC contractor and say, hey, here's what Mr. McFadden is trying to accomplish. What do you believe is the best solution to make that happen, given comprehensively what we do with our homes, so that we're not creating some kind of adverse effect down the road for you and your family.
Okay, makes sense. J-Bo is asking if spray foam is used in Southern Zone, would the ACH numbers have to meet the Northern Zone numbers during testing, or will the ACH goal still remain at 5?
Great question. The goal still remains at 5. That's code, but I can tell you it will come in below 3. It just will. Yeah. Spray foam will make that happen. So.
Okay. Doug is asking, for electric hot water heaters, do you offer heat pump or hybrid systems, or is that extra?
It would be extra to do that, but we have had customers that did those.
All right. Nate is asking if we can share the presentation slides with him. I don't see why not. Yeah, we can. I'll add a PDF when we do this blog post, and Nate will circle back and send you a link to it. Wendy is saying, this doesn't need to be addressed here since it's off topic. It's okay. We love off topic. But I'd be interested in the framing process and if you're open to using something other than lumber, particularly given the price of lumber right now.
Yeah, Wendy, we're always looking at solutions. Unfortunately, steel hasn't accelerated quite as much as lumber, but it had a pretty fat head start. It was already a lot higher than lumber was, and it's not cheap either. They did kind of the same thing. The steel mills shut down, just like the lumber mills shut down. They assumed the same things that some of the lumber folks assumed, which is back when March 2020, when the pandemic began. Oh, people are going to shut in. No one's going to do anything. But it's going to go into lockdown. Well, that didn't happen. And steel took a little bit worse hit that no one was really anticipating, which was the longer people stayed in their homes, turns out they wanted to upgrade all their appliances because they got tired of cooking on the old stove they never used. Well, guess what all of your ranges and dishwashers and microwaves and all those are made out of? That would be steel. So steel went in short supply, exactly what happened to lumber. So again, the only reason we haven't been talking about steel prices is because it doesn't affect us as much. We have some, other than appliances have become very difficult to get exact models, but steel has gone up, not quite at the rate of lumber, but enough where it is not a viable alternative.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Jabo is asking, with the efficiency of today's homes, are there any limitation on the numbers of windows Tilson allows? Are we able to have as many as we prefer, provided that the soundness of the structure is not compromised?
I mean, I guess so. There's some limitation on that would be down in the windstorm type of area. I don't know where you're building exactly, Jabo, so forgive me. I think it's in the hill country somewhere, but
yeah, I think he's in the Bernie area.
Yeah. So it probably wouldn't be a big deal out there. Windstorm, it would. You can only have so much square footage of glazing. That was called a DP rating that it can't exceed because of pressure from like a hurricane or winds. But otherwise, I mean, there's not really a limitation of the number of windows other than, we need to be able to hold the house up. So you got to have enough framing or start using engineered wood products, some engineered lumber to hold the house up. But
people tend to want their house to stand up. Like
that's true. Some of the thing also though is even from a decor perspective inside, like you got to have some walls somewhere, right? You got to put a bed somewhere, got to put a TV somewhere. I don't have to, I guess, but even just a reading space or there's gonna be some places where some bathrooms you may want to have some privacy. I don't know. Of course, you're out on 20 acres. Who cares? Maybe not. So just don't just think of Jabo the kind of the way the outside's going to look, but also consider what you're going to use for the space inside.
Right.
Where you are going to need some wall space for furniture and other stuff like that.
Absolutely. Nancy is asking what our most popular floor plans are. Right now, it's kind of a tight race up there at the top. The Gonzalez and the Angelina keep trading back and forth, and right below that is the Driftwood. Plus the Cypress which is pretty much the same. But those are the three that kind of jockey back and forth for being most popular.
They do.
David is asking if there's any benefit to using a 1/2 inch of closed cell below the open cell for a tighter build.
So David, there is advantage to that, but in our opinion, it does not outweigh the potential disadvantage, which is a moisture problem. Closed cell foam is in a confined space is notorious for holding moisture. Where you typically see closed cell used is in like a commercial application, where like think of a commercial retail type space where they 14 or 16 foot ceilings, they'll close cell that, but then they're doing like a dropped ceiling. Think of like a pet store or Walgreens or something like that. But there's 6 or 8 feet of air between the closed cell and the open cell, and those buildings they don't have to meet this air changes per hour, so those buildings are not built as tight. They do have passive ventilation. Air can come in, air can go out. They may have 15 or 20 or 30 air changes per hour or more. They're not
doesn't seem fair.
I know. It's not fair. Don't worry. Commercial has a whole lot of other restrictions on them, like fire sprinklers and escapes and exits and staircases.
And ADA compliance. I guess
So they've got their stuff they got to deal with too. But suffice to say, we really still steer clear of any kind of closed cell in a residential application, just because it's so difficult to tell when it's starting to suffer water damage until really the damage is done. You've got mold, you've got mildew, you've got rot. So yeah, I'm steering clear of closed cell in a house
Okay.
so far today. I'm not saying it's forever, but today.
Yeah, that makes sense. Got to solve that moisture problem first. Hugh is asking what type of water pipe we use. We use PEX because of its quality to be able to expand when it freezes so it doesn't break. It's also just more friendly for the reality of a job site, which is somebody might step on it. And with any of the other products, you're not going to know that until you actually run water through it. And by then it's kind of too late to know that you had some type of break in it. Yeah. And then just the flexibility, there's less joints that we have to do. And every time you add a joint to piping, it's another opportunity for breakage. So PEX is what we go with, and it served all of our customers very well during this freeze.
Crushed it.
David is asking about variable speed HVAC. That's what he was talking about when he said the HVAC he wants.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I thought you were meaning like geothermal or some kind of brand that we've never heard of, or, mini splits, although we've done all those things. But yeah, variable speed is not a tall ask. In fact, some of ours are going to be, depending on the size of the unit that's called for, it will be a variable speed. And there's two different types. There's variable speed compressors and variable speed air handlers. And so we'll want to be sure when we're going through that question with you, specifically your design consultant, that we get you the right one. And there's both. So
okay, makes sense. And then Jabo is asking, are there any benefits to designing the HVAC so the system sits in the attic space over the garage rather than the living area? For example, possible water leaks, ease of access, etc.
So you've listed the benefits, Jabo. So thank you for answering the question for me. Appreciate that. So I will be typical Eric fashion and tell you the disadvantages. No, that's a great question, Jabo. You did answer it. I mean, you're on spot with what the benefits would be. The advantage to locating it where we do is it's in the center of the home. So from an energy efficiency standpoint, you're having to push that air that you're paying to cool through less duct work before it gets from the source to where it's supplying, bedroom, closet, bathroom, whatever. So if you usually a garage is on one end of the home or the other. So if you locate the HVAC equipment all the way over there, the room that's next door to the garage is going to be super efficient, good to go. The one that may be 80, 90 feet away, you're going to suffer. So some inefficiencies, and you might find that you have a hard time keeping the ambient temperature the same on that end of the home because of how far the cooled air is having to travel, or the heated air is having to travel in a cold attic. So that's why we locate it in the center, is to try to make it as efficient as possible. Okay,
that makes sense. And that is our last question.
All right. So Dawn, that was good. I felt like it didn't. Yeah. So guys, I really appreciate y'all jumping on this energy efficient one. I know this is a popular subject. If there's other subjects y'all want to hear about, let us know.
Yeah, let us know.
Dawn is always on the hunt for good content. We'd love to hear from you guys. Any questions that you have. Of course, we have all 11 design centers, plus the website. Dawn, is there anything different about the website than it was last week, or
not different about the website, but just we actually won the Nationals Award from the National Association of Home Builders. We won best website for a home builder in all of the United States and Canada. So pretty proud of that.
Everybody clap for Dawn. Dawn and her team worked tirelessly to get that website the way it is.
Yeah, that website's my baby.
Unequivocally the best website in the nation, according to the National Association of Home Builders.
But always changing, always improving, because like I said to my team, to Nick and Kelsey earlier this week, if you never update a website, it's not a website, it's a time capsule. So we're always looking to update it and make it better and get you guys more features and just make it function better for you all. So we've got some cool plans.
Is how Dawn makes this possible. I mean, she's really good about getting y'all's feedback and incorporating that and get it back into it. So ask us any questions you like. Of course, we're going to be
thank you, Felix.
Open. All design centers are open 7 days a week. We have our Facebook page. We have our YouTube channel. There's tons of information there. The website, our 12th design center, Dawn calls it.
Yes.
It's open 24/7. It doesn't close. So go on there, binge on that content. There's a lot. All these are on there. We just love to hear from you guys. Ask any questions. We want you to have a great home building experience, and we genuinely hope to make you part of the Tilson family. So till next